This is your boy here, Miami Dolphin superfan, Gorilla Luke. I just want to let you guys in on something. I need you guys to please subscribe to Fin Addicts Miami Dolphin podcast. And please make sure you also subscribe to Fin Addicts Network on YouTube. Good stuff right there. Fins up, baby. Let's go.
I'm your host, Jason Sarney. I am joined by my co-host, Brian Byrne, and we are absolutely honored to be joined by ESPN Miami Dolphin beat writer Cameron Wolfe. How you doing, Cameron?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Doing well, thank you. And we want to hopefully know that we're going to be getting some howling of the Wolf segments this year. And other than hopefully hearing that, yes, just an overall, we appreciate and understand you have valuable time. So what else is going on in your world other than covering some Miami Dolphins?
No, thanks. First, we're definitely going to go howling with the Wolf back this year. We'll probably get it started up sometime before the season for the first one. So thanks for that. But everything's good on my end. My wife is 8 months pregnant, so we're expecting our first baby. So a lot of it's just been me working up in the facility and then coming home and trying to do what I can to get her ready for that day. So we're due late in September. So that's been it. Just staying inside. Obviously, the pandemic has impacted all of us with having to adjust, but now we're back in the swing of things for football. So, just trying to make the most of my time before the baby comes.
Congratulations on the new baby. I'm a new dad myself, and I will tell you, no matter how much you prepare, you will not be prepared, but it will be amazing for the entire family. I also wanted to congratulate you. You were covering the Titans before you came down to South Florida, and you got moved to South Florida right before the Titans went to the AFC Championship game. You came down to Miami for a 5-11 rebuild. But congratulations, with drafting of Tua, we finally got some interesting stories for you to get on some national coverage.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope so, man. I went up to Nashville right before that AFC Championship game because Ryan Tannehill was up there, so I did a story on him, and it was like, yeah, it's crazy how things flipped, but maybe the Dolphins will be in that chair, a couple years down the line, and I'll be covering them in the AFC Championship game.
Two beautiful cities, though, either way.
Well, I got to tell you, both of you guys, new father-to-be, new father currently. I'm the veteran. I got two boys myself. So, you guys are going to have some fun coming up. So, moving on here, before we delve right into, the Dolphins news, I know that there's some Florida news and rumors about Yannick Ngakoue. Have any of those rumors maybe come south to Miami, or have you been hearing anything?
I haven't heard anything about Yannick. I know it would be a lot of fun. I know Clowney was the big name around this time last year. Obviously they have interest in big-time pass rushers, but I think the way they're trying to set up their roster and what they're building towards, I don't know if they're willing to give up the assets plus the money that it would take to get Yannick. So I'm sure he's somebody they would be interested in, but I haven't heard anything as of now, and the Miami Dolphins being in on him.
And before, we get into anything else, we have to start with Tua. What has been your impression so far on the field? And not only just on the field, but how's he stepping up as a leader, on and off the field from the limited you get to see off the field?
Yeah. I think first on the field, and I've talked about this a little bit, like my first observation is that he looks healthy. Going into the draft, everybody was worried about his hip. How is he going to look? Is he, is it broken? Is he ever going to be the same player? And I'll tell you what, I've been out here last few days of practice. I couldn't even tell you that he was hurt, if I didn't know before. I haven't seen him, look at that hip one time. I haven't seen him, favor it. He's looked mobile. So everything in that department is checked out for my eye. That being said, he hasn't looked like the second coming of Dan Marino just yet on the field. He still looks a little bit like a rookie, and I think a lot of that can be expected. He hadn't played padded football in 9 months. He's learning a new offense. This is the first time they've really been on the field. So I think, he has a little bit of the training wheels on him a bit. A lot of short passes, a lot of slants and screens. And you're just seeing him kind of get the grasp of it. But I think as the weeks go on, as he becomes more comfortable, you'll see them put a little bit more on his plate. And then I guess your other question was about him as a person. I got to know Tua a little bit in the draft process. Obviously, we were hawking around him like cyclones. So I got to know him and his family and his reps a lot, leading up to the draft. And he's a really personable dude. Like the dude that you guys see, that's what I've seen. I've had to cover, 4 or 5 starting quarterbacks in my career. So, I've got to see different type of personalities. And I think that he's going to be a really bright personality for Dolphins fans to really get to know. Obviously, he's already made his name, nationally. He's got a documentary coming out next month. So you already know that he's got the buzz nationally where, you say Tua and people nationally are going to know who he is. But I think he, from his personality, I talked to him a few times in person. And then recently on the Zooms, we got to talk to him. And you can kind of just see him, naturally, like his personality, like from wearing the Fitz jersey to the Zoom session. That's something that you only do if you're comfortable in your own skin, and that doesn't happen often with rookie quarterbacks. So I think you got a good one on the field and off the field. And we just got to wait to see once it's his time to have the keys of the team.
I'm sorry, Jason. One follow-up question on that. Because it was often said when Dan Marino stepped on the field, his first training camp, David Woodley was the incumbent starter, and it was obvious pretty early that this guy was a lot different. We haven't been hearing that same thing about Tua, but Tua, Dan Marino had a lot more practice before, not just three practices, but is he playing mostly with the threes and the I want to say the bottom of the roster, but is it more the second and third string guys that he's getting the reps with?
So they're limiting us on what we can report in, I guess, the depth chart standpoint. But I will say that, how can I word this? A lot of the young players and the rookies are playing together. And I would say that that Fitz and Rosen have been given more on their plate at this point than Tua. So I think if you can read between the lines, that's sort of my answer. I think, as I've kind of reported through the whole time, I think the expectation is that Fitzpatrick is your week 1 starter. And I think that sort of is in line with what we've seen in practice. I think that you're going to see them develop Tua. And at some point, I think everybody knows that he's going to be the guy. It's just, when is that? Is that sometime in October? Is that November? Is that even 2021? I think that's the biggest question, rather than, hey, can we get him for week 1? I don't think that's something that anybody should expect or be disappointed if he's not the week 1 starter. I don't think that's any indictment on Tua. I think that's just, Fitzpatrick has been in Chan Gailey's offense for 5 years. Tua is coming off, a very serious hip injury and is seeing his first action. So I think that as the weeks go on, as he gets more practice, you'll start to see maybe some of those memories that Marino had where, hey, his arm is unbelievable, and you can't, we'll start hearing some of those stories, as weeks go on, but it just hasn't happened yet for a variety of reasons. So
going back to that presser where he wore the Fitz jersey, I thought that spoke volumes, both with just savviness. You mentioned the comfort in his own skin, and he actually kind of just understood the role and even kind of said things exactly the way he needed to say. So, and I completely understood what you said about, who's playing with who. So regardless of those groupings, what players other than Tua have you noticed that have really started to stand out, jump out, or whether it be a positive or negative? Who's really kind of making a name for themselves, young player-wise?
Yeah. I guess briefly on the Tua point, I think that their relationship has been very interesting to watch. And it hasn't felt artificial. I've covered the NFL. This is my 6th year, and I can tell when people are faking stuff to me. They're like, hey, a lot of times teammates will say, hey, we're gelling. We have great chemistry. We're all bonded. And you can tell they've never hung out with each other ever before. It's just apparent. So I think that the Tua Fitz bromance, so to speak, it seems natural to me. They both have this sort of colorful personality. Obviously, we saw Fitz last year where, he's this fun-loving dude who guys love to play with. And then Tua, I was a little worried as he came into it, and I actually did a story in May about just sort of his star power. he's coming into this guy. He's already the most popular guy on the team, and he hadn't played a snap. So you wonder how guys in the locker room are going to react to that, because guys are jealous. They're like, why is this guy getting all this attention? And I haven't seen that one bit. And I think a lot of it's because of how Tua handles himself. There's not a lot of like showmanship. There's not a lot of puffing your chest like, hey, I'm the man. I'm going to be the new man on the scene. I think he's really humble, and I think that helps him with guys in the locker room. So I guess that's my first point on that. And then to answer your second question about who stands out, I think that, the two people who stood out to me, like just every day, have been Devontae Parker and Preston Williams. And I think that, that duo, we got to see, 7 or 8 games of them together, and it was very exciting. But every single time in practice, I'm getting, at least 1 or 2 highlight plays from both of them. And obviously they're both huge receivers. So, you got both of them healthy right now. Preston's coming back from the ACL, but he looks healthy from what I see on the field. Devontae Parker is healthy right now, and he's looking like he's trying to capitalize on what he did last year. So, I think that they have a really good chance to be a top receiver duo as they continue to ascend. So I've been seeing them, they beat pretty much everybody out there. I've seen Devontae beat Byron Jones a couple times. Byron's got him back a couple times, but Devontae's probably won more of those battles so far that I've seen. So I think those two guys have stood out to me the most. And then as rookies, Tua obviously is the guy we have eyes on, but Noah Igbenogany is a guy who's kind of flashed to me a bit over the last couple of days. And not necessarily just because he's making a bunch of interceptions or plays, but I think I like just his spirit. Like I was mentioning, he had a play against Preston Williams earlier this week in practice where, they were neck and neck fighting down the field for the ball, and Preston just went up there and got it. And he just made a Preston-type play. And, it's what you expect from him. And, I thought, hey, guy played good defense. You go back. But Noah was upset. He was pissed at himself. He was slamming the ground. He was frustrated. He thought he should have made the play. And we talked to him later that day, and he was like, nah, it's not gonna be too much longer before I'm making those plays consistently. And that's a rookie speaking, a guy who hadn't played in the NFL. So to me, that gets me excited. I played DB in high school, and that's a position where confidence is key. If you don't have that confidence, then you could be shook really quickly. So to see that guy that's fiery and has that confidence, it makes me think, oh man, I got to watch this dude. He might actually end up being a good player in this league. So I'd say, from a rookie perspective, that Noah's a guy that stood out to me early. And then from a veteran perspective, definitely Devontae and Preston.
Oh, wow. That's a great one-on-one comparison, like a basketball matchup, wide receiver, DB. I remember that Zoom conference press room where, Noah was expressing the fiery, he was upset that Preston beat him. Could you paint us a word picture of a Preston type player? You allowed one of the few guys to cover that play. Was it a toe tap? Was it an 80-20 ball like our boy Brian likes to mention? But what was that play? If you can give us a little.
Yeah, it was like it was like a lot of the plays that Fitz threw up to Preston and Devontae last week. It was one of those 50-50 balls where, I think it was on the right side of the field. Preston was running, what was maybe like a seam route or more of a fade route, not necessarily a straight go, but he was running that down the sidelines, and it was about 25 to 30 yards down the field. And like I said, Noah was with him neck and neck, but Preston kind of turned his body, and he got above him. It wasn't like a take it away, like he was above Noah, and he just went up there and grabbed it. And Noah was falling down, and he just couldn't break it up. And Preston kept running towards him. So I think it was a play where, you often hear the commentators say, good defense, better offense. And I think that was just sort of the essence of it. And I think for a rookie, you might take solace like, hey, I almost got it. I was right there. And I took a lot of takeaway from the fact that he wasn't happy with it. He wasn't satisfied with being close to just being, right neck and neck with him.
Kim, can you put a lot of Dolphin Nation at ease right now and let us know that Preston Williams is no longer going to return punts anymore? What was going on with that the other day?
Oh man. This is one of my biggest pet peeves. If you ask some of the guys here, they all laugh at me because I get frustrated every time I see him back there. I'm like, I cannot believe they still have Preston back there. That's how he got hurt last year. And to be honest, I know his numbers are great, but every time we watch him in practice, he's muffing punts. So it's not like he's even this like great punt return. So it just doesn't add up to me. Like he's not even maybe last year he's an undrafted guy. You want him to make the roster, prove himself. But he's a starting receiver now. Like, he's clearly their number 2 receiver. He's too valuable to be put back. I can go on a soapbox for this for days, but I can tell you guys, though, he was off on Tuesday, he came back Wednesday, and he was not returning punts. And when I could tell you, I was happy to see that. He was working on special teams, doing other stuff, but he was not returning punts. So I don't know if that's going to be permanent. I hope so. I hope that was just, they figured out, hey, this is not what we want him to do. But, at least for the most recent practice we've seen, he wasn't returning punts.
Thank God.
Woo! Okay, thank you very much, Cameron, because I had a little bit of a problem. I think, the guys talked me off the ledge last night. I was about to hitchhike down to Miami and just, beg outside of Hard Rock Stadium, please don't let this man return punts. But on the flip side of the positive, has there been anybody that you've seen or not seen and you're kind of expecting more from, saying, all right, well, what's going on in this case?
Good question. I think that obviously, like everybody, not having Xavier out here has been, pretty disappointing. Obviously he's rehabbing from that knee injury. I think there is some legitimate concern that he won't be ready for week 1. I know that he still wasn't 100% when he was rehabbing out here. So he's still trying to get that knee back to where he felt fully comfortable, and then he landed on the COVID list. So I think it may be tough to expect him to be full force week 1. So a guy like Noah Igbenogany or Nick Needham might have to play a bigger role early on. So not necessarily from a practice perspective, but just from wanting them to be full force, that's definitely, been a disappointment. So obviously I think he's still a really good player, and I want to see him and Byron Jones as a duo, but I think it dampers things a little bit when that, going into camp, he's not the same, not the same full force player yet. So maybe he gets there at some point in the season, but I do think there's a little bit of worry in that perspective. I'd say from on the field, I don't know, like it's been 3 days of practice, so I don't know if anybody's played terrible per se, but I think, just kind of looking through just maybe how things have flowed. I haven't seen, maybe, Brandon Jones, the rookie, I haven't seen him flash a ton. I haven't really seen much of him on the field doing stuff. So I don't know if that just means they're comfortable with where they are with the other guys, but I just kind of look at the rookies, and he's been more of the quieter of the rookies, probably the quietest of the rookies other than the long snapper, in my opinion. So he may be a guy. And then, surprisingly, I haven't seen a ton of Raekwon McMillan. I know they've brought in a lot of linebackers and they're doing different things in their rotations. But he's a guy who, I thought had probably one of the better seasons for the linebackers last year. And for whatever reason, I don't know if he's just, I don't know what's going on, but he hasn't really seen the, how can I put this? The type of he hasn't been in the flow as much as maybe some of the other guys that I would expect him to be. So I guess those are maybe a couple of things that stand out to me. And then maybe from an offensive line perspective, Julian Davenport's a guy who I think ended up starting week 1 last year. I would say that Dolphins fans shouldn't necessarily expect him to start week 1 this year.
I think we're all going to do this to that. we drafted Austin Jackson. We were all kind of hoping for that, I believe.
So in talking about the offense, Cameron, we've been hearing a lot of conflicting reports as to how the running backs have looked out there. Travis Wingfield said that Jordan Howard has looked really good on a few runs, and Omar Kelly said that Myles Gaskin was the only one that really is popping. So can you give us a little bit of clarity in terms of the performance? What have you specifically seen, and who has stood out?
Well, the reason why you get conflicting reports is because they're not tackling to the ground. So it's hard to gauge running backs when nobody's really tackling you. So I don't know if I would say anybody's having a great few days, because it really just depends on what your blocking is. You're just running through a hole and you're not getting tackled. So I don't know. I mean, I do think, like, from the Myles Gaskin perspective, just looking at him at camp this year to where he is last year, he looks more comfortable. He looks more fluid. Last year, I didn't think that he was going to make the roster, honestly, and I think he made it because he was a draft pick. And this year, I think that he's got a lot better chance in that perspective, and I actually wouldn't be surprised to see him beat Patrick Laird out if that ends up being, the battle between those two. And then I guess, like, from the running back perspective, like I said, I want to see guys hidden and actually, tackling before I kind of grade them. But, like, I've written about this a little bit before. I think that it's going to be a duo system. I think that Jordan Howard is going to be your early down back. It's going to be your first and second down back, your goal line back, and Matt Breida is going to be your speed back, more pass catching third downs. And they're going to kind of split off in that. And maybe that 2018 offense where we saw with Frank Gore and Kenyon Drake might give you a little reminder of maybe how they split things up. So to me, that's how I see it. I think they're both fine. I wouldn't worry about, whether or not they're running in the right hole or anything like that people are gauging from the first few days.
Could that be the explanation of Raekwon Davis, or not Davis? I'm sorry, Raekwon McMillan as well. He's mainly a run stuffing middle linebacker. Is that maybe why he hasn't been in the mix as much, because they're not fully tackling, that he's not coming in and stuffing the run?
I mean, it's possible. I know they've been running a lot of different packages. This is, you hear Flores talk about all the time, the multiple defense. They've been running some 4-3. They've been running some 3-4. And I think that you've seen a lot of different packages. And I think, like, for me, the guys who I expected to be, prominent players, I think he's a guy who maybe hasn't been as prominent as I would expect. So I don't know that, like I said, I don't know if that's an indictment on him. There may be something going on that we just don't know about. But, just kind of gauging what we can see and what we do know and what we can report. I would say that's something that, caught my eye per se. But yeah, it's possible. I mean, he's also a guy that they know well. So maybe they're just trying to get a little bit more eyes on guys they don't know as well. Some of the new guys coming in. So I definitely think they're going to need a lot of backers. Obviously, they lost Vince Beagle, so there's going to be a lot more, roles that are given to, whether it's, the guys who are returning like Jerome Baker and Raekwon McMillan, or the newcomers like Kyle Van Noy and Andrew Van Ginkel and some of those guys. And, I definitely think they have a lot more versatility in that room than maybe they had before.
We've been seeing some good things, hearing some good things from what we've been available to see about Josh Rosen. And just simply put, what are your thoughts on Rosen?
Yeah, I think that Josh Rosen, it's funny because around this time last year, Josh Rosen was the story. Like, he was the guy everybody was like, oh, is he the answer? What is he going to look like? Fresh start. And now he's like sort of the third wheel. People are just like, he's just he's the forgotten man, and it's weird because he's still, 2 years removed from being a top 10 pick. So I think that, I think Josh Rosen, in my opinion, and I'm gonna write about this I wrote about this for .com today, is I think that he's been arguably the most consistent of the three quarterbacks so far, just as a comparing highlights to lowlights. And like I said, it's only been 3 days, but I do think that he may take some benefit out of not being in the spotlight. He's been in the spotlight his whole life. He's been in the spotlight his whole NFL career, and now he just kind of has no real expectations. He's a third quarterback. People are wondering, is he going to be trade bait? Is he just going to be a backup? Like, what's the role with him? And I think there's even uncertainty on his end, but I do give him credit. Like, I think a lot of people might have just, pouted, or they might have asked for a trade, or they might have been, in a position where there's no path for me. Like, you guys drafted Tua, he's clearly the future. This is now. Why do you guys still have me here? And from what I heard, he hasn't taken that stance at all. He's just kind of put his head down and worked. So whatever the final result is for Josh Rosen, I do give him credit for coming back. And like, from what I've seen so far, he looks to be in a better, position as a thrower than he was last year. But one thing I am cautioning myself with, the big thing for Josh Rosen has been processing. And that only really comes during game action. So I don't know if I can get a true gauge of this is a different Josh Rosen until I see him in a game. And since there's no preseason, we might not see him in a game.
That was one of the things that I was really impressed with, too. I think Armando reported that about a week ago, that he had not asked for any trades or releases. The follow-up question I have on that, though, is that I think the one real knock on Rosen, has been, besides the processing, has been that leadership, that being being the main guy in the locker room. Has he been taking that from learning more from Fitz and learning more from Tua on that? Has he been?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Obviously, we haven't been in the locker room to see it ourselves, but like, I think the thing with Josh Rosen, he's never going to be super vocal. I don't think you can change truly who you are. I don't think he's going to be this big demonstrative guy. I don't think he's going to be like as fun-loving and relaxed as a Ryan Fitzpatrick or even a Tua. I don't think that's his personality. So I think it becomes more difficult where he has to put effort into leadership. and I think he needs to act. He has to actively be that guy. So I do know that, like from what I've seen, he's tried to be one of the guys, which was I think some of my criticism of him last year. You'd see Fitzpatrick, and I'd even heard this from some of his teammates last year, where you see Fitzpatrick, assimilating to some of the guys a lot easier, where he eat lunch with the tight ends, or eat lunch with the running backs, or laugh and joke with these other guys. Where Rosen was a little bit more internal; he was more to himself, and I think that I've seen more of him try to interact, whether it's in the quarterback room or with other people. So I'm not sure if that's something that's conscious that he's trying to do, or if it's natural, but I have seen some of that just on the field. They were playing a little game Wednesday where they were thrown into a tire. The quarterbacks were from about 30 or 40 yards away. And, they're all throwing in the tire, and they're mostly missing because it's far away. But Rosen ends up hitting the tire about 3 times, and he wins. And you see him putting his hands up in the air, celebrating, and kind of having fun with the quarterbacks about that. And I'm like, man, that's some of the most personality I've seen and expressing out of Josh in a while. So I don't know, like I said, if that's him just feeling more at ease because he's not in the spotlight, but I think those are positive signs for him, whether it's here or somewhere else, for maybe trying to get his career turned around.
Absolutely. One more follow-up question on the quarterback. Omar today was saying that Ryan Fitzpatrick's arms looked like it was fading a little bit, kind of as it did at the end of last year. Do you see that? Did you see that this year, or do you see that more of a he didn't throw in the offseason? He said that a few times in the press and the pressures that he didn't throw a lot this offseason. Is it more just getting in shape, or does it look like it's a little less than what it was last year?
I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick is old, man. He's a guy who uses a lot of effort in his throws. So obviously it makes it probably looks like, hey, it's more cumbersome for him. I haven't necessarily seen like a dead arm of that sort. I just know that he just puts more effort in his throws. So maybe that's something that worries people a little bit more. I think he's fine right now, until I hear otherwise. I don't know if I'm worried about that. At this point, he's never been the strongest arm guy. He's never been a guy who's throwing it 50 or 60 yards down the field. And from what I've seen, he's still been throwing the deep ball. Like I said, he's been throwing it deep to Devontae and Preston and more than any of the other quarterbacks. So I think that, he's still comfortable with that. And I haven't really seen a huge drop off on the effectiveness of it. So if he's showing a lot of those signs, then I haven't seen them.
The thing that I think I'm a little bit more interested in than the quarterback play is the offensive line play. We got the 3 rookies out there. What are your thoughts? How are they gelling together? How are those 3 coming in and playing? And are they going to keep that hip safe?
Yeah. I think that there's probably got to be a lot of excitement that they really addressed the offensive line in the way they did it this offseason. Austin Jackson, Solomon Kinley, Robert Hunt. I think whether it's this year or next year, you're going to look at those guys, all 3 as starters. And I think that's something that'll be a big boost for this Dolphins O-line that's been an issue for so many years. So, I think that the biggest thing that I take away from them is the size up front. I think they're going to be a more physical unit. I think they're trying to be more of a gap power rushing team. And I think that's their long-term vision of this offensive line. And I guess from what I've seen so far, and to be fair, they're not competing with all-world players, but I think they're holding their own in the competition. And like I said, I think that, it wouldn't be surprised to see, 2 – I wouldn't be shocked to see 3 rookies starting, week 1 on that offensive line. And I think that's, somewhere where – if fans are looking at the O-line early in the season and they're seeing all these rookies perform poorly for whatever reason, I don't think that should be an indictment because they haven't played together or young. But I think you're building towards having that unit, them cohesive as a unit. And I think particularly with Tua, as you build that group, you want them to be all together, all as one, rather than just kind of grow in separate units. So I'm definitely like, from what I've seen, like I said, we haven't been, full tackling or anything of that sort. But from what I've seen, they've been holding their own. I haven't seen any of them get embarrassed consistently. I haven't seen, them get ran around or pushed all over. They're definitely holding their own. And that, I think that's all you could ask for rookie O-linemen, early in camp.
And Cameron, we don't want to keep you too long. Thank you so much for your time. We had a couple other questions that you kind of alluded that we couldn't ask because of you couldn't tell exactly where some players were playing. They won't allow you to do that. But I do have to take you out like I've taken out everyone, all the other people that have graced us. What's the outlook for this season? What would be your record prediction? Do we have playoff chances? And has any of that changed with all the Patriots opting out, Jamal Adams being trading, C.J. Mosley opting out? What's your thought for this season?
Yeah, I think the AFC East is definitely a lot wide open. Probably it has been in 15 years maybe. I know the Dolphins stole a AFC East in there in 2008, but I think that when Brady was hurt, and that was when the Wildcat era came across. So I think this is probably the most exciting the AFC East has been in a while. I think for the Dolphins, I'd probably predict 7-9. And I think that's probably a realistic record for them. I know people might say, there's a lot of more optimistic people who may say playoffs is what they're asking for. And, I don't think I would be shocked by that. But I just think that they're still a year away from being able to compete for that realm. So 5-11 last year, I think with a more competitive roster, with a more competitive schedule, with a team that's still kind of learning each other, I think 7-9 would be a record that they should be, plenty satisfied about. So I would say that's probably my prediction at this point. And then when you kind of look at, I guess, the AFC East picture, I think it's a toss-up between them, Buffalo and New England. And I think that, the opt-outs obviously make an impact. How quickly does Cam – I think he's going to be the starter. How quickly does he assimilate are all factors there. But I think 2021 for Dolphins fan, you circle that year, that's the year where you can truly chase that crown.
I agree with you on everything you just said there. We really appreciate you coming on, Cameron. And we can't wait for Howlin' with Wolfe. And we really are looking for your reporting in the next couple of days, weeks, and months for the Miami Dolphins. So if you have anything else that you can get us out of here with, again, we really appreciate the time. And thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, guys. It was definitely fun. And definitely appreciate you guys following the content as the time goes on. So I'll try to keep you guys updated. And it was fun doing it.
Thank you again. Have a great night. Be well.
Fins up.
All right,
Fins up. And that was Cameron Wolfe of ESPN. Thank you again, Cameron, for sitting down with us. Just wanted to quickly chime in and say this podcast brought to you by our newest sponsor, ThriveFantasy.com. Use promo code Fin Addicts when you sign up today, and you will receive an instant $20 bonus on your first deposit of $20 or more. Download Thrive Fantasy on the App Store or Play Store by visiting their website. Sign up and hashtag prop up today. So, Drew, what did you take from this whole conversation that we had with Cameron?
I guess I'd start with, I really enjoyed having him on. I watched some of his segments, the Howlin' the Wolf, several of them last year, because let's face it, last year was rough. But with that said, we did get to see a little bit of insight that was nice. Hearing, as far as they got Tua throwing slants. One interesting thing he brought up, I think we had seen on Twitter they won that tire throwing contest. But hearing him talk about it and Rosen's interaction with everybody was good. And then also hearing how everybody's kind of going towards Tua. So that may be a very good chemistry they've got working there as far as between the three of them. I'd say that was about the biggest one I heard out of that. Yannick Ngakoue news was, of course, lacking, but we can keep hoping.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Jason?
I think he did a terrific job. And, of course, we really appreciate him coming on. Thank you again, Cameron. And I thought it was great the way he kind of described certain things, the reading between the lines. He's one of a very, very small handful of people who can get eyewitness reporting. And in the translation of that, he gave some really terrific nuggets. So, I love the quarterback room because I think that it's not just important this year to just help. A veteran's going to be the quarterback to start. We know it's Fitzpatrick, and I liked how he said that, look, it's going to be Rosen and Fitzpatrick as the veteran quarterbacks right now. Tua is still a rookie, and everything that he said just was music to my ears because that's the progression that it should be. And I noted one thing about Rosen because I think a lot of these reporters right now are making me a little bit happier about just Rosen as a Dolphin, because I loved how Cameron said that the spotlight's not on him, and he now could just kind of have effort into leadership, which that's going to really show what this kid's made of. So let's see if he's on the sideline and really kind of taking effort into tutoring Tua, or talking with a wide receiver on how he can help out, break out of a route, or something like that. So it's gaining my appreciation for Josh Rosen and my want for him to succeed, which has always been there. But now I actually kind of think that let's not sleep on Josh Rosen just yet, but let's also just realize that, talking about Josh Rosen, and it's, there's a lot to learn of all these quarterbacks, and Fitz is the veteran, but it's his team right now, I truly believe.
And it's safe to say the chapter, the Miami Dolphins chapter on Josh Rosen has not fully closed yet, and he's still a very young player. It's just, I think for me, it's very nice to have some eyes and ears on the ground and then get the opportunity to hear from that person. What really stood out to me and made me smile is that two of the groups that are really shining in training camp right now are the wide receivers and the corners. That's incredible. I love to hear the competitiveness, the intensity. I want to hear more of that. I love that our two wide receivers he mentioned specifically. That gives me a lot of hope, a lot of excitement for the season. Drew, what do you think about that? What do you think about those groups and basically his description of how they're doing?
I'm really excited to hear about that, actually, especially the Preston Williams news. That was really good to hear that he was not returning punts. I was thinking, though, that the stuff we're seeing come out, just like you used to see in New England, is probably a lot more controlled than it used to be. So you've got Rosen. Every time you see a picture of him, he's throwing the ball down the field. Then you got Tua hitting slants, Fitz doing a little bit of everything. And then you got Preston being shown returning punts, and it at least coming up as an issue. So everything that they're bringing up and they're practicing, teams have to prepare for. So while the Dolphins are doing that, I know the Patriots were kind of doing the same thing. Some stuff was said about them trying to make it look like there were three different QBs. Joe Shad had a tweet out about that, and how the last time that happened, the Patriots OC was facing Chan Gailey, and they lost 33-3. So that was some pretty good stuff right there. But I think that's pretty much what I've got thinking about at this point.
I almost wanted to do a cartwheel when Cameron said that Preston was not returning punts. And you made a terrific point just there, Drew, with especially this year, the outside of the field, the information dissemination, what's being put out there, the misinformation that might be put out there. You know what? I would love for Bill Belichick to waste 4 hours deciding how he wants to cover a Preston Williams punt return if, in fact, it's a bluff. So it would be great because I never want to see it again. And I think you spoke eloquently, both of you guys, about the takings, and I thought it was a really it was a fun and informative get for us. And Cameron's terrific, and we'll be looking forward to his stuff on ESPN and all over the Dolphin beat.
Very much so. So I guess thank you again, Cameron, for taking the time out to talk with us. For everybody else, make sure you subscribe to the Fin Addicts Miami Dolphins podcast on the Fin Addicts Network. Available where all podcasts are available: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. Follow us on YouTube at youtube.com/Fin Addicts Network. Follow us on Twitter, of course, Fin_Addicts. And don't forget the hotline. We love hearing from you guys. We love hearing your takes. Of course, you want to call in, give us a Dolphins take, talk some trash, whatever it is. We're probably going to play it on the show. That number is 786-309-7558. One more time, 786-309-7558. Call in, leave us something. This has been the Fin Addicts podcast. Fins up, everybody.
Fins up.
Fins up.
This episode brought to you in part by Thrive Fantasy, available in the App Store or Play Store, or by visiting their website, thrivefantasy.com. Use the promo code FINADDICTS when you sign up today, and you will receive an instant $20 bonus on your first deposit of $20 or more. Sign up and hashtag prop up today.